What is going on, everybody? Today we are doing a Seattle Seahawks 7-round mock draft. We're going to go through this. We're going to break it all down. The Seahawks have a ton of picks. In my opinion, this team right here is already very, very close to a Super Bowl. I think they have a couple of pieces that they really have to fix, really have to figure out. But if this team can just hit on one or two picks the way they did in last year's draft, this team's right there. They'll be competing for a Super Bowl. Let's go ahead and get right into this third video of this mock draft series that we have on this channel. Let's go ahead and start the draft. We are using PFF's mock draft simulator. Let's check it out, man. So you got the Bears taking Jalen Carter with the first pick, Bryce Young going 2, Will Anderson going 3, Will Levis going 4. The Seattle Seahawks have the 5th pick, and this one's interesting because at the 5th pick, you can go in any direction you want. Tyree Wilson's available. Devin Witherspoon's available. Brian Branch. All of these guys impact the defense so much. But in my opinion, the defense isn't really even that big of an issue. They have a lot of good players. The offense, a lot of good players. But the one thing this team is missing is the guy to lead them to the Super Bowl. That is the quarterback. For me, I'm taking CJ Stroud with the 5th pick. This is, in my opinion, what I think is going to absolutely take this team to the next step. In my opinion, and we're going to talk about this pick really quickly before we move forward. I love Geno Smith, but Geno Smith is going to turn 33 years old soon. Geno Smith isn't the future of the Seahawks, right? He was really that bridge quarterback for this year. As they kind of moved on from Russell Wilson, they reset some things. But they're right there, man. When you hit on Kenneth Walker, when you hit on a young corner in Tarek Woolen, even the 4th-round corner, Kobe Bryant, when you hit on some of these guys and then at the same time you draft 2 superstar tackles, 1 superstar, I should say, for sure, in Abraham Lucas. In my opinion, Lucas is the best rookie tackle in the NFL last year, or I should say this past year. And Charles Cross, I think he'll develop a lot still and get a lot better. But when you hit on those picks, right, those positions, if you go get a quarterback like CJ Stroud who can develop and be your long-term quarterback, you're right there into competing for a Super Bowl. Again, I like Geno Smith, but is he worth 20 to 25 million? Maybe even more than that, right? Geno Smith, we've heard rumors, may want $30 million. That's not worth it. To at that point sign Geno Smith, you may be giving up some other guys, and I just don't think it makes a whole lot of sense. I'm moving on from Geno Smith. If I'm the Seattle Seahawks, I'm drafting CJ Stroud. Or if you like Anthony Richardson, you go with Anthony Richardson. Personally, I think CJ Stroud with this group here makes a lot of sense. Of course, as you guys know, the Seattle Seahawks do have the 20th pick as well. So let's go ahead and just get into it. At this pick, you got a lot of different options. If you wanted to go with a guard, you could get Osiris Torrance to replace Gabe Jackson at right guard, right? Fits right in. But I don't think offensive line is even that big of an issue for the Seahawks. I think the smart thing to do would be to re-sign Phil Haynes and let Phil Haynes play right guard. In fact, I would start him over Gabe Jackson. To me, when Phil Haynes and Gabe Jackson were rotating in this past year, it was very clear that Haynes can definitely handle it. And I think what the Seahawks need to consider is to, you already have 2 really good, talented wide receivers in DK Metcalf as well as Tyler Lockett. But I think what you could do is add another wide receiver. If I'm the Seattle Seahawks with the 20th pick, I would consider adding some firepower to the offensive side with Jackson Smith and the Jigba. But I also think a defensive end makes a lot of sense. And with the 20th pick, there are still a lot of good defensive ends available. So when you guys look at the edge players available at this point, you got Myles Murphy, who is falling a little bit down the ranks, Andre Carter, Nolan Smith, and Will Mcdonald. And then BJ Ojulari. I think those 5 guys are, and maybe not Andre Carter as much, but I think those 4 to 5 guys are the guys to consider with pick 20. If Will Mcdonald is there for me, I'm taking him with pick 20 because I think Will Mcdonald and Nwosu Uchenna go hand in hand with one another. And McDonald gives you that versatility to be a stand-up outside linebacker, or in the nickel packages, you can put his hand into the dirt and be that defensive end to come off the edge. I think Will McDonald is one of the best pass rushers in this class, pure pass rushers. I think that's going to benefit the Seattle Seahawks a ton. let's go ahead and get into this next pick. So now we're in the second round of pick 37. Keep in mind, this is also the Denver Broncos pick. Um, I do like at this point to consider taking a center. Um, Oftentimes, you got the best centers still available with pick 37 in the second round, right? Still super early in the first round or in the second round. Austin Blythe is obviously a free agent. He's up there in age as well. I think he's like 31, 32 years old. So I think the Seahawks should look to replace him and get their center of the future. A lot of picks, right? 4 picks in the top 51 picks is ridiculous, right? You don't get that generally speaking. John Michael Schmitz is my number 1 center right now. With him, right? Luke Weiper is right there if you wanted to take him out of Ohio State. Really, really, really good center. Joe Tippmann, really good as well. I think most people have those 3 guys up there as the top 3 centers. Although I would consider the Ohio State center for this scheme, I'm going to go ahead and take the number 1 center on my board right now, which is going to be the Minnesota center. I think right now, at this point, the Seahawks have hit on need. They've hit on positional players that they can take, some values that they can get right. You get an edge defender, you get a quarterback, an edge defender, and you get the center. Those are 3 guys that are going to plug and play and be full-time starters. Outside of that, I don't even know if the Seahawks have another need at this point. I think they could consider a safety, a long-term replacement for a guy like Quandre Diggs, who I think his cap hit this year is like 19 million or something like that. It's a high amount, right? So I think you could consider replacing him. There's a lot of good safeties, in my opinion. Sidney Brown is one of the best safeties in this class. I don't even know if he'll be available with pick 51, but if he's there, I am taking him. I think the guy has first round potential. Sidney Brown is a name to keep an eye on. Sidney Brown is going to be one of the best overall defensive players out of this class. He's a guy that's climbing the draft boards recently. He's a guy that I absolutely love. Pick 83. At this point, I think the Seattle Seahawks should look to get a guard, right? Pick 83, third round. At this point, I think you can look at an interior offensive lineman. If you want to take a guard, you can take a guy right now like Andrew Voorhees, who could be a long-term right guard option. A guy like Jarrett Patterson could be a long-term option. A guy like Antonio Maffi, although you could probably wait until the 4th or 5th round. I'm going to wait, actually, on the interior offensive line. I think a wide receiver at this point could be very interesting as well. There's definitely a lot of good players out there at the wide receiver spot in this class. Obviously, I think there's about 3 wide receivers that will go in the first round, maybe 4. And then there's a lot of guys I think that are going to, overall, right? A lot of guys that are going to be wide receivers that are going to be taken in this class. Maybe you wait on the wide receivers a little bit. You can see at the top of your board, you got some good running backs. Maybe that's an option at this point to possibly take. I don't. Keep in mind, this running back here isn't to replace Kenneth Walker. I think this is more of that 1-2, right? The number 2 to Walker. Rashad Penny becomes a free agent. I don't know if you want to bring him back after his injury from last year. Plus, you don't really know what he's going to cost. I'm going to take a running back with pick 83. A guy who's climbing the draft boards, Tyjae Spears out of Tulane, I think is going to be one of the best running backs out of this class. Crushed the Senior Bowl, elite vision, elite ability to move. Plus, he can play some wide receiver lineup in the slot a little bit. I think that makes a lot of sense here for this club to be able to go forward with that. Pick 122, I'm going to look at a guard at this point. We're going to do both tackles and guards. Pick 122, I think this is an interesting option to take a tackle / guard, and this isn't really a tackle, it's just really a guard. But Tyler Steen, as an example, is going to be a guard at the next level. Great Senior Bowl. He played left guard, absolutely crushed it. Andrew Voorhees, another guy who's played not at the Senior Bowl, but watch his tape. He looks really, really good. Again, this is the long-term option at the right guard, right? To really replace, if you don't bring back Phil Haynes, if you let him walk, Gabe Jackson's under contract, but maybe this is the guy that kind of replaces Gabe Jackson over the next year. I'm going to go ahead because I think this is going to be the best scheme fit for the Seahawks scheme. I'm going to go ahead and take Tyler Steen. Keep in mind, This is a guard. Although he was the Alabama left tackle, I think he's going to project as a guard, and to me, that makes a lot more sense. So I'm going to go forward with that. Um, at this point, do the Seahawks have a lot of weaknesses? Probably not. Maybe they have an inside linebacker that they can take. We can go ahead and check out some of the linebackers. One of the guys that I really liked in this draft is going to be Henry Tutu. Another guy that I really like is Aubrey Miller Jr. Actually, literally just watched this guy's tape recently. Absolutely going to be a really, really good football player, in my opinion. I think for the Seahawks, that's a really good pick. Believe it or not, I did not have him on my radar recently, and I started watching his tape. I believe it was 2 days ago I watched his tape. And I really like this guy. He flashed. He looked good. Would he be a reach with pick 153? He may be a reach. Maybe we can wait to get him. But if there's a guy that you like, I think you take him. Now, obviously, in this instance, it'll be a tough decision. Do you take Henry Tutu or do you take Aubrey Miller? Or do you just take both guys, right? You pick with 153 and then got another one with 156. I'm going to take Aubrey Miller Jr. I think he's a great fit for the Seattle Seahawks. I think he makes a lot of sense for the Seahawks as well. Maybe the Seahawks can get a tight end. I don't know if they need a tight end, right? You got Noah Fant, Will Disley. A guy who's a great blocker, in my opinion, is Colby Parkinson. Great blocker. Maybe you don't need a tight end as much. Maybe you take a wide receiver with pick 156. Maybe you bring in some speed with some of these guys, right? There's some guys that have that quickness. There's going to be a lot of guys, man. I'm telling you guys that are going to get picked as a wide receiver in this class. If I'm taking a wide receiver right now, I think Ronnie Bell seems like a very interesting prospect. A guy that I've recently watched recently as well. And then you got the final pick in the 6th round, pick 197 of the Seattle Seahawks. This one's going to be interesting. I'm not sure if how correct Pro Football Focus is leaving Ricky Stromberg available in the 6th round. That's crazy. To be honest with you guys, we've obviously already drafted a center. But if somehow Ricky Stromberg is here, I would draft him. You have 2 starting centers. One guy can shift over to guard, obviously. A superstar player. In fact, I literally just did a Will Anderson Jr. breakdown against Arkansas, and we pointed out Ricky Stromberg a couple times. One of the best centers in this class. In my opinion, he's probably the 3rd or 4th center in this class. I don't know how he would still be here unless no one needs a center, which I don't see that being factual anyways. I think an interior defensive lineman would be interesting here. I think a running back would be interesting as well. Although we already took a running back, maybe a fullback for the Seahawks. They don't technically have a fullback on your roster, but how many teams are really using a true fullback nowadays anyways? Let's look at some tackle prospects. I think there's some guys that you may be able to develop long term. Obviously, let's be honest, the Seahawks have 2 tackles that are long-term tackles. But there's going to be a scenario in which one of these guys, in my opinion, I think Abraham Lucas is a superstar player. I think Lucas is going to become the highest paid tackle in the NFL at some point because he's really good. So when that happens, Charles Cross may also want to get paid. Now, for Charles Cross, you do have the 50-year option. But do you have the cap space to pay 2 tackles long term? Like Charles Cross being the 9th overall pick. I believe it was 9th. Don't quote me on that. Being the 9th overall pick, does Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas both together deserve to be paid $19 million because that's what they may get if they pan out to what they will become. Lucas is going to become a top 5 tackle, positive. Haven't seen it in Cross 100% yet, but developing is a real factor. Then you look at, DK Metcalf and they see Stroud may get paid if you do take a quarterback. Then you look at guys like Tarek Woolen, who looks as to be a top 5 corner. You may need to draft a tackle for the long term, and maybe this isn't the draft to do it, but since we have some guys available, I'm going to do it, right? I'm going to take a tackle. Plus, I think at the very least, you can let a guy, you can let one of your tackles walk, right? Stone Fortsey might not be the future tackle. Really hasn't ever proved to be that guy. Jake Curhan, not sure if he'll be able to be like that swing tackle. But a guy that I really like is going to be Oklahoma tackle Wayne Morris. Morris played right tackle. As you guys know, the left tackle there was Anton Harrison. I don't see there being that big of a difference between the two guys. Now, obviously, Harrison's better, but Wayne Morris in the 6th round, I think, would be a fantastic pick for the Seattle Seahawks. Long-term development, right? Plus, it's like the final pick anyways. I think the Seattle Seahawks, and I've said this already, are in a really unique spot. They're in that type of spot where they're going to be Super Bowl bound, right? Let's be honest. If they hit on a quarterback, they made the playoffs with Geno Smith this past year. And if they get a true difference maker at quarterback, the guy that has the ability to create, the guy that can really make a difference, I think this draft right here would be perfect for the Seattle Seahawks. You get CJ Stroud in the 1st round. He's your long-term quarterback. Maybe you even bring back a guy like Geno Smith for 1 year. All right, maybe you give him $25 million for the 1 year. And you let CJ Stroud learn. You let him develop. And then with your other 1st round pick, you get Will Mcdonald. Now you got Mcdonald and Uchenna, 2 really good pass rushers. On top of that, you bring in your future center and John Michael Schmitz. You bring in a safety with pick 51. All 4 of those guys right there are starters, most likely day 1. And Sidney Brown might not be a starter, but he'll rotate in and he'll play 40% of snaps. Whether it's in the slot, whether it's in, he's rotating in at safety. Maybe a guy like Jamal Adams steps into the box. The guy's going to play a lot. And then Tyjae Spears gives you that weapon. Tyler Steen comes in and develops, and maybe he's your starting right guard one day, right? Again, I think this right here would be the perfect mock, but I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.